kept pushing on, but then you went too far. When your ship has sailed and all your dreams are lost, everything is wrong, you feel like it's your fault. Just remember, I will be there for you, baby. Remember, there's nothing out there to get you, don't forget it. When life throws lemons, just call me. Just call me. Just call me. Just call me. You're stronger now than you ever been. You gotta leave now, it's time to catch the wind. You will climb up high and look through the clouds. And when you're feeling low, I know you'll bounce back. Oh, and just remember, I will be there for you, baby. Remember, there's nothing out there to get you, don't forget it. When life throws lemons, just call me. Just call me. Just call me. Just call me.
All right, welcome in everybody to the Western States Racing League, live here from just north of the border, Canadian Tire at Motorsport Park. So last week we were in the Xfinity cars. Andrew Schulte was able to bring home a win after having a couple heartbreaking losses earlier in the season. Kyle McCartney second, Michael Melfeld Jr. in third. Joining me in the booth once again is Mac Nelson. Mac, how is it going, man?
It's going pretty good, Mike. Thank you for having me back. You know, in my very short, commentating and casting career, I saw a very, very good race last week at New Hampshire. And, I'm eager to see how these guys get it when they have to turn right and left instead of just turning left.
Yeah, these guys definitely put on a show. We've seen them run a couple road courses this year. And we've seen Christian Bishop win at Mid-Ohio, and then we also had, let's see who won. Maybe that was the only one this year so far, was Mid-Ohio. So Christian Bishop won a couple other road races last year, but these guys definitely put on a show. Christian Bishop's guy to watch, Bentley Glazer, as always. Kyle McCartney does pretty well on the road courses. So look for those guys to make a run towards the front, as they are just now getting into qualifying.
Yeah, and it's interesting, these trucks, they have a lot of rear power to them. So expect a lot of spins, expect a lot of loose ends, coming out of the corners, especially going around the S's. Those are high-speed corners just at the last sector of this track. So we'll see how these guys can manage. We'll see what kind of speed they can carry through, and expect some sort of chaos here. There always seems to be, no matter if you're racing in a NASCAR car or you're racing in an LMP2, there's always going to be chaos at the S's.
Yeah, it is definitely something to look out for. In practice, we saw these guys running about 123, so we'll see if that carries over here to the race. We are in for 40 laps, and as always, there will be only local cautions on track, as these guys just are barely starting to get underway qualifying here. Let's see if we can go ahead and bring up the points real quick. Jeff Hollinsworth is still leading there. Ryan Steele in second. Jeff Schmeier, Brian Barnes, Wayne Hutchinson, Dennis Fuson, Charles Woods, Bentley Glazer, Ross Rollins, and Bob Beltrami round out that top 10. So this is the time of year when they get into this, basically the dog days of their season here, where you start seeing some of these guys, their bad races start to fall off, or in the case of Bentley Glazer, the races he missed kind of help him work his way back through the field when other guys start dropping races, and he's still racing here. So he is inside the top 10, so we'll see if he can come back and get that 5th championship in a row here.
Yeah, be good for him. I haven't got to see him around a road course yet, but I'm sure he had amazing racecraft at New Hampshire, and so I'm sure it will carry over here. Luckily, most sport, a very short track, however, very technical, a good combination of high speed and low speed corners. So, these drivers, a lot of times in ovals, you kind of blank out on those straightaways. You're just kind of there, and then, you kind of come to during the corner, see how you're going to approach things. But you have to be on your toes for every single square inch of this track, or else you are going to be off into the grass or into the barriers.
Yeah, as we were just talking about, Bentley Glazer, first one to complete a lap, 123.5, but Christian Bishop, I always call him the road course ringer because he always seems to show up and run extremely well, 123.26, so he is definitely a guy to watch out for now.
Yeah, that 26 Chevrolet of Christian Bishop, he is cooking. We're watching him right now entering these corners well. He's utilizing the oversteer and understeer. We call that, in the road racing world, we call that neutral slide. So he's managing that understeer on exit, and he's managing the oversteer on entry, and he's really wheeling this thing.
Yeah, we'll see how he comes through here. This is one of the tighter corners on track. You work your way through some of these, and then you get to that, they call that the Moss corner, and have to be on your toes there before you get to that straightaway.
Yep, the Andretti straightaway, always going to be good. Flat through here. On the S's, though, let's see if he drops any speed. He does enter pretty well. He misses the apex by just a tad. Late apex is that S. Misses the apex by just a few millimeters there onto the last corner, and that's some pretty good pace that he's taken that through. You see him managing the understeer there on the exit, so yeah, he's got it figured out, that's for sure. He's really wheeling that truck.
Yeah, went just a little bit slower that time by, but still under that 124 mark. So Lyle Swearingen completed his first lap with a 123.83. Looks like all these guys are running pretty similar times, all within basically a second of each other up until you get to P12 there.
Well done into turn 1 for Lyle Swearingen there. Oh, wait, I take that back. He is done. I thought he was running his second lap there, but he is done. He has completed his 2 laps.
Some of these guys are from series we used to, an open wheel series we used to broadcast before iRacing and Indy decided to have their falling out. Chris Walker, Lyle Swearingen, Butch Davis, all those guys were out there on Thursday nights in SRE putting down their fast laps there. So if it carries over here to the trucks.
I think it definitely will. You know, road racing, you know, the cars you race are very... Whoa! Whoa! Chris Walker just runs into the wall. This is a sim, so luckily no repercussions there. But yeah, what I was going to say was, you know, no matter what you're driving on a road course, the knowledge that you gain or the knowledge that you have from previous experiences, it all carries over. You might drive the cars completely different, but typically, you know, your knowledge, your racecraft, how you approach these corners is going to be generally the same. So having that past experience with that open wheel series is going to pay dividends for their results here tonight.
Yeah, Butch Davis up in third, Lyle Swearingen in fifth. So Andrew Schulte, last week's winner, currently sitting P6 right now, trying to better his lap time, and this gets a little loose, and I bet he's going to call it a day there.
Yep, that is the tricky Moss corner. That is always, you know, where the chaos is, lap one during these races. IMSA here last week, if any of you are familiar with the B-Class iRacing series. Yeah, the IMSA series, it's a lot of chaos here in Moss Corner because, you know, you have that tricky downhill. You really typically want to brake in road cars as soon as that elevation starts to go from downhill to uphill. I really couldn't tell you where the braking point is in these NASCAR trucks. However, I'm assuming it's going to be right around the same. And, you know, with that, you know, the angle that you're turning in is really sharp, and you have to apply your throttle pretty early to be able to keep the momentum up. That's going to encourage a lot of sliding and spinning from these trucks. So we'll see how these drivers can handle it.
Yeah, definitely. Now, as you were speaking there, Kyle McCartney just put down the pole lap of a 123.16. So he is definitely on the move in that Snap-on 18 Toyota.
Yeah, that is blistering pace out of Kyle McCartney there. In the Toyota, we don't see any Toyotas besides P8 Andrew Schulte. So we'll see. Will the Toyota have a little bit of an advantage here? Who knows?
Looks like he's going to call it there. William Fletcher completed his first lap of 123.94. It should just be about done here. We got whoever's running on track is about all that's going to be able to complete the qualifying laps, because we've got 10 minutes to get it done and we're 9 in. So
clips the grass barely there going down the straight before you get to Moss Corner after Quebec Corner, and unfortunately that's going to be his qualifying wrapped up.
Yeah, it looks like everybody else is pretty much done. Bentley Glazer just getting a little bit more practice, it looks like here. See if he goes a little faster. Doesn't look like it there. Andrew Schulte jumps to him as he's spinning around. So Bentley still out on track. Looks like Dustin Burns as well here. If you're a hockey fan, you'll definitely recognize that.
Ooh, carrying a lot of speed down into turn one there. Almost clips the grass, but luckily is able to keep it on track, and it doesn't matter. He pulls out just a little too late. Will not be able to get a qualifying lap down.
Yeah, it tends to happen, especially at these road courses. But as you see here from that blimp view here, these guys have quite a distance here to cover. Got 2.43 miles of track. Temperature is 112 degrees. Ambient air is only 78, so to be ready to go here, let's run down the grid as they're in their trucks. Get a nice look here. So we got Kyle McCartney and Christian Bishop on row one. Justin T. Wilkinson and Butch Davis, row 2. Row 3, Jeff Schmeier and Bentley Glazer. Row 4 is Lyle Swearingen and Andrew Schulta. Row 5, Eric Bolton and Chad Simpson. Wayne Hutchinson and William Fleet round out row 6. Row 7 is Chris Walker and Ryan Steele. Row 8, Michael... oh, you got it?
Yeah, my bad. Row 8 is going to be Michael Milfeld Jr. and Brian Barnes. Row 9 is going to be the 77 of Chris Simmerd and Bob Beltrami. Row 10 is going to be Dennis Fuson and your championship leader, Jeff Hollingsworth. Row 11 is going to be Julian Ricci and Charles Woods. Row 12 is Dan Brazington and Fred Williams, who has not taken the track yet, so he might be starting from the pits. Row 13 is going to be Paul Krum-Ray and Dustin Burns. And then P27 and P28, Carl Burke and Oliver Cordell, who have also not taken the track yet.
So that is the way they start here. Like I said, we are in for 40 laps. These will click off pretty quickly here once they get going. Like they are moving forward now. Looks like Fred Williams, Carl Burke, and Oliver Cordell have not taking the track, so we'll see if they're going to start from the pits, try and stay out of everybody's way and work their way back through the field.
You know, now granted, this would have bred a lot more chaos and a lot of destruction, but it'd almost be nice to see them at a standing start. Watch those tires spin as they try to take off from the start-finish line. But unfortunately, we're not here to promote chaos and or destruction, so we are going to be seeing that iRacing Mustang GT pace car.
Yep, the one and only time we will see it tonight. They're all working their way around the track, and this has got to be a little bit hectic for some of these guys, because this is probably the only time you're going around the track where you're side by side worrying about the car to the inside or outside as you make some of these corners.
Yeah, for sure, and especially in a big pack like this, you know, you really only see these, you know, like you said at the start, you know, when you're pacing around. And, you know, if there does come a time during this race where we see 5 or 6 drivers in a pack, I'm just wondering how the racing is going to be, because these trucks are very unpredictable. If you send them into a corner at, you know, 1 or 2 mile per hour more than what they should be, you know, that's a lockup, that's a spin, you know, that's oversteer or understeer, and you know, it can really breed some chaos. These drivers, especially for these first 2 or 3 laps, are going to have to be on their toes, like I said earlier, and they are going to have to be absolute demons on that left pedal.
Yeah. You're probably going to see some of these guys kind of figure out the best spot to be if they want to just let a car go by and kind of work their way to the outside and work their way back through the field after it kind of settles down. Because once these laps start going, like I said, there is no cautions. There's probably going to be 1 pit stop. So pace car is in. Kyle McCartney has the green flag, and we are racing here at Canadian Tire.
And clipping that curb on turn 1 is going to send your truck extremely wide, so drivers are going to want to get as close to that as they can without actually touching it.
Yeah, you probably know more about that than I do, as we see Jeff Schmeier just go flying through the grass. Talk about clipping the corner there. But it looks like everybody kind of settled down there, and here they go.
Down into Moss Corner for the first time. Be interesting to see how the mid-pack cars are doing it, as McCartney, he gets a little loose there, but the 27 of Wayne Hutchinson, and these drivers are actually taking it extremely well. And I was wondering how the first lap was going to pan out, because you always see it in these oval races, whether it be official races on the iRacing service or league races. You know, everyone kind of preaches the take it easy into turn 1, take it easy on lap 1. unfortunately for the road side of things, it's quite the opposite. Your biggest movers are going to be on lap 1, and the first few laps you really want to establish your position so you can defend. So, it's interesting, safe, but interesting how these drivers elected to kind of just chill out on the first lap instead of trying to make those moves and push.
Yeah, I definitely think if this was, more of a road course league, you would probably see that. But these guys have raced each other. They kind of know where everybody's going to be relatively, most of the time. So the guys who had that good qualifying lap are usually up towards the front, and then the other guys mid-pack and back. They've basically taken it that's where they're probably going to be racing most of the time, so they don't want to push their car too hard and wind up, ruining somebody else's day, as these guys are. A pretty close-knit league here.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Kyle McCartney using all the track there, using very little runoff that Motorsport gives you on that Moss corner, but he is, from what I've seen so far, he is absolute textbook. He has done his homework, that is for sure.
Yeah, these guys, let's go back here a little ways. Looks like Bentley Glazer and Butch Davis are side by side for a little bit here.
On the outside, that's a lot of speed Bentley Glazer is carrying, however, having to take the outside to the first S. And, he had to turn his wheel back just a little bit so he didn't get into the number 43 of Butch Davis there. However, gets it done. Bentley Glazer with the clean overtake. Could have been, it was a little rough around the edges, but a clean overtake nonetheless. They're battling again, though. Butch Davis is coming back into turn 1. Unfortunately, that outside line with Andrew Schulte, he is not able to get it. So that's 2 positions dropped there for Butch Davis in the span of 3 corners.
Yeah, it kind of looked like he might have checked up just a little bit, thinking Bentley Glazer was going to slide that corner. So he didn't want to be to his inside there too much or outside. And as soon as he did that, it looks like Schulte took advantage as well. So he's fading back just a little bit, but he's got his teammate behind him here in Lyle Swearingen, so they should probably hook up and kind of relax each other and get clicking off some decent laps, as we're already through 3 right now.
Yeah, and with Mosport being a short track, the 2.11 miles or something you said, I believe, these laps are going to go by extremely quickly. And before you know it, we're going to have our first pit stop.
Yeah, we got, even in practice there, we were looking in, they were 123, and that's exactly what they're running now. Justin T. Wilkinson, last lap was the fastest lap of the race with a 123.19. So even though he's in second place, he still is making his way closer and closer to Kyle McCartney, running. That the last time was almost a half second faster, but this time he lost a little bit of ground as he was kind of having to defend from Christian Bishop back in third there.
Yeah, and you see it on the ovals, these trucks, they really suffer in the dirty air. They're really tight into certain ovals. Texas, especially in 1 and 2, trucks get really tight in that dirty air. Well, it's going to be no different here, folks, on this road course. These trucks, since they have an aero package to them, since the draft is really good in these trucks, down the Mario Andretti straightaway, they are going to be getting a lot of draft. However, the corners right after the Mario Andretti straightaway are the S's, and that is where the dirty air is going to hit the most. So expect Kyle McCartney, although getting crept up on by the number 6 Ford of Justin T. Wilkinson, expect that gap to kind of even out over the course of an entire lap because of the dirty air that Justin's having to face in these corners.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, he is able to hang on just to that back end, but when it comes to into the corners, it looks like he loses just a little bit of time as he's trying to get that truck almost, I want to say, back under him, because he does have Christian Bishop right behind him as well, taking some of the air off that spoiler. So got to be a little hard to drive in between 2 of these road course guys here.
Yeah, and the oval mentality of these guys is, same thing here. The front 3, they're gaining time. They're probably not going to try to make moves. They're probably just going to try to get out in front of the rest of the grid as much as possible. And then, once the dust is settled and they're, over the horizon for the rest of the pack, then that's when they will battle. But these guys are in a straight line right now. They are in perfect unison when it comes to running these laps. And, you know, Kyle McCartney just leading the way, man.
Yeah, it looks like we got a incident here on track. Let's jump back and take a look at Dan Brazington here. See what happened here. Looks like carrying a lot of speed in. Oh, just gets in that. Just on that curb, man.
That's very tough. And in these trucks, it'll happen. It will happen. You've got a lot of power being applied by those rear wheels. So, you know, you really want to keep it on the racing surface as much as possible. If you're going to be taking curb, you want to straighten your wheel out and you want to lift off that throttle.
Yeah, on board here with Justin T. Wilkinson as we see him get a little bit closer there. And actually, it almost looks like that snap-on has a little damage there.
Yeah, I noticed that towards the end of the first lap, but, you know, from what we saw, I don't really know what hit him. Might have been a netcode issue. I'm not sure, because I've been looking at the front of Justin T. Wilkinson and Christian Bishop, and I haven't noticed anything on the front of their trucks. So I'm just kind of weirded out by that. I don't really know how he got that damage, but it seems to not be hurting Kyle McCartney at all, because he is still absolutely blazing through these laps here at Motorsport.
Yeah, you're right. Don't see any real damage there, so looks like it might just be a little bit of a bump or something that might have happened on one of these corners that we just weren't able to catch as we were going back through the field. But these top three are almost 2 seconds in front there of Bentley Glazer. As you can see, that gap just kind of grow a little bit more. And it looks like Ryan Steele went off track a little bit here too. He's back going here, lost a couple positions.
And trying to work his way on the inside of that Beltrami salami truck. I am very, very much in love with that scheme that Bob Beltrami has right there. That is amazing. I don't know if Beltrami salami is a real thing. I assume it's not, but I'm just telling you right now, I walk in Walmart or I walk in Whole Foods and I see Beltrami salami, I'm buying it. I'm buying everything the store has.
Yeah, looks like Carl Burke and Fred Williams didn't start at all. Neither did Oliver Cordell there, but we got 25 that took the green flag. And right now, everybody's still working pretty well. Looks like Dustin Burns is having a little bit of a hard time as he's getting lapped there by the leaders.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if he just like blew Moss Corner or if he just said, I really don't want to ruin these leaders' races, so he just took the runoff into the grass.
Yeah, I would almost say he saw the leaders coming and just tried to get out of their way.
Yeah, as not really sure what happened, but it seems like Justin T. Wilkinson has really fallen off from Christian Bishop.
Now let's take a look at that pass.
So Christian Bishop just gets the better run out of the last S there, and coming down into turn one, it almost just looks like Justin maybe sacrificed the position, maybe trying to play a long strategy here, because he was carrying the right speed to take turn one how anybody else normally would. It just seems like he surrendered the corner for whatever reason.
It looks like he's backing up quite a bit as now he is gonna
very wide into Quebec there.
It looks like he's gonna almost surrender another position here to Bentley Glazer. Bentley Glazer is within quarter of a second of Wilkinson now. He's very wide
into the grass in Moss Corner. What happened with the 6 machine of Justin T. Wilkinson? He was running fine with the leaders as a very risky rejoin in front of the 68 of Lyle Swearingen. I'm very confused as to what happened. We had a front runner here who has just fallen off harder than the McLaren engine in the 2023 Formula One season. I'm not sure what that was about.
Yeah, I don't know. He almost like he surrendered the position like we were talking about, and then he just kind of faded back a little ways. Then almost like he forgot how he was driving Moss Corner there and just completely blew it. And then,
yeah, which I will say, or sorry, go ahead.
No. And then it was like he rejoined just angry because he messed up.
Yeah, which I will say, the road course racing, and this relates to oval as well, it's a big mental game. You know, if you notice a couple of corners that, you know, you miss the apex or you're slower by 4 or 5 tenths in your lap time, you just, as a human, you try to, ooh, big off there for Brian Barnes. He gets it spun around, though. I don't think he collected anybody, so just a simple mistake. But as I was saying, you know, as a human, we just want to get that back and then some. So then we start pushing, we start braking 10 meters later, 20 meters later for every corner, and those mistakes can really compound. And I wonder if that's what happened to Justin Wilkinson there. He just wasn't exactly happy with how he had done, so he tried to push, and those mistakes just compounded, and now he's down into 9th position.
Yeah, it kind of seems like what probably happened, because he was running pretty well, and it looks like maybe he just made a couple mistakes and then just lost his composure there a little bit, and hopefully he gathers it back up and can get back to racing these leaders, because he was one of the faster cars on track.
Yeah, which granted, we are only a fourth of the way through the race, so, you know, he's definitely got time. It's just unfortunate that we had to see that happen, because like I said, you know, these top 3 were really pushing their lead out from the rest of the pack. So, you know, tough to see, but, you know, it is what it is, you know, and hopefully he can make up for it.
And right there, you just saw Kyle McCartney and Christian Bishop just get a little bit loose. And now they're battling back here. Drew Moss here.
Ooh, Kyle McCartney had a really good exit on him, but unfortunately got that wheel spin before shifting up into what I would assume to be 2nd gear. And so that's tough, kind of levels out. But Christian Bishop has been flirting with the overtake a little bit. Now, granted, if he goes for an outside overtake through any of these corners, it's going to be extremely difficult to be able to lay down the power to get around and also have the grip to be able to sustain that power. So, you know, unfortunately, I think he's just going to have to wait for a Kyle McCartney mistake and be able to take the inside of a corner rather than him just brooding his way through the outside of a corner.
Yeah, it looks like, well, like you said, it's going to take a little bit of patience to stay kind of behind him, wait for him to make a little bit of a mistake, or maybe you get a better run off a corner so you can set it up to take the inside as they both slide around that corner there. But if he's waiting for Kyle McCartney to make a mistake, they are few and far between here.
Yeah, and the Beltrami salami machine of Bob Beltrami is actually in the pit. Not exactly sure what happened. If he has damage, then that is extremely unfortunate, but I guess there's a world where he's going for an insane undercut from the racing gods that will, you know, help him get position in this race, but I think this might be a little too early for undercuts.
Yeah, let's take a look here. It looks like he might have went off track a little bit, so we'll see what happened.
And unfortunately, misses that first apex, but is right on the second apex, and he just can't get the truck turned for the third S. Maybe seeing that 23 machine of Chris Walker in front of him, maybe he took his eyes off the apex for just a second. And, you know, that stuff can happen. If you lose concentration, like I said, for any bit, then it can spell disaster for you and your race. So I'm wondering if that's what happened, because his truck just failed to turn into the final S.
Yeah, that's the other thing. You're sitting here thinking these guys, as Kyle McCartney takes that a little wide, Christian Bishop gets sucked right in on his rear bumper there. Looks like he's going to get to the inside. We'll see if he's going to be able to push his nose through. Still side by side almost.
It's tough. Flirting with the overtake through Quebec, almost got it to work, but he assumes the position and falls back into line right behind Kyle McCartney. Let's see who gets a better run out of Moss here, and it's going to be Christian Bishop, as a lot of wheel spin for Kyle McCartney, and he doesn't defend the inside. Kyle McCartney almost giving up that position as, like, you know, I made the big mistake here, you can have the run. But even doing so, he does get the inside for the one corner that is on the straightaway. So it looks like Kyle McCartney, even with all of the mistakes, as Christian Bishop is off the track. How unfortunate.
That Christian Bishop battling on with Kyle McCartney there. And Kyle McCartney kind of set him up, knew what corner was coming up, and pushed him to the outside. And that spelled disaster there for Christian Bishop, as now he is back in 4th position, having to defend from Butch Davis.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. Christian Bishop did everything perfect there. Unfortunately, just taking that inside up the straightaway, if you don't have the momentum to get a clean overtake and to be able to defend by the time the S's come up, you're at nothing but a disadvantage, because that first S is a right turn, and a very forgiving right turn at that. You know, you can take the inside line into it and not really have to compromise any speed. So, you know, unfortunately, Christian Bishop just couldn't string it all together, and he was really making a good effort of it too. He had Kyle McCartney's number on numerous occasions.
Yeah, he definitely did. He was right there, and just a little mistake. Looked like he just got his left side tires in that dirt, and it spun him around and kind of like sucked him in. So hard luck for him, but there still is quite a bit of race left, as it looks like Bob Beltrami is back in the pits again. So he is having a hard time here.
Yeah, unfortunate. It's the commentator's curse, man. I said I really enjoyed his Beltrami salami scheme, and you know, sure enough, we find him in the pits twice. So unfortunate for Bob Beltrami.
Kyle McCartney's starting to come up on some lap traffic here, so might have to change the way he's running. Might give Bentley Glazer a chance to cut into this over 2-second deficit that he has right now.
Yeah, battling lap traffic, no matter what you're on, is always going to be difficult and is always going to lose you time in the end. So we'll see. Andrew Schulte is right on Bentley Glazer as well. So, you know, in the event that this lap traffic does slow Kyle McCartney down, we could be looking at a 3-horse race here very soon, as the one of Julian Ritchie goes off at Moss. We predicted it in the beginning, Mike. Moss was going to spell chaos, and it sure has. It had, fortunately, it hasn't really destroyed people's races due to contact, but it has destroyed some races due to just, you know, them going wide, carrying too much speed. But Moss Corner is a very tricky corner, one of the trickiest corners of any road circuit on the service. So, you know, to see 80% of these guys taking it extremely well every lap, it really spells to their racecraft and, you know, just their skill in these trucks.
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, looking at the track map, you can kind of see how it just kind of, I don't know, flows basically. And then you have Moss Corner that's basically 290 degrees right after each other. So not something that you see every day. And these guys are going pretty well, but they still have carried a little bit too much speed, or just changed the way they were driving it just enough, and it's caused them to go off track.
Yeah, very tricky, because you can't really double apex it, because, you know, in a double apex, you really want to drive at the same angle for both apexes. You almost want to make a triangle with your car. You want to dart into the first apex, head to the far side of the track, and then turn in for the second apex. But there's just enough room between the two corners that you can't really do that. You have to take a compromised line into one, and then when you think you're ready to turn in, you still have about 10 or 12 meters to go, and then you can turn in for the second corner. So extremely tricky and extremely difficult to get right, especially on a lap-to-lap basis like most of these guys are getting here.
Yeah, and you can see it looks like guys are starting to slide around just a little bit more with all that heat that is in the track. We got completed 15, working on lap 16. Here is Kyle McCartney. So as Bentley Glazer clips the curb there, allows Andrew Schulte to close in a little bit as ground.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Bentley Glazer and Andrew Schulte, the kind of mini battling that they're having right now is just allowing Kyle McCartney to get further and further up the road. And so can we expect a 1 or 2 lap undercut from Bentley Glazer and Andrew Schulte to compensate for the time lost due to their battling?
Well, that's the thing we're going to have to watch for here is when does the majority of these drivers elect to come to pit lane. I mean, if you're looking back in the field a little ways, if you're Dan Brazington, Julian Ricci, Dustin Burns, who are a lap down, a couple laps down, I mean, it's not going to hurt anything to come in a little before everybody else. And also, if you're back in 19th, 20th, 21st, once Kyle McCartney starts to get to you, it wouldn't hurt you to just head to pit lane, get your, go your lap down or whatever, get your pit stop done, and come back out and try and get a little bit of that time back.
Yeah, and the question that I really have been, wondering, do these drivers take lefts only for their tires? Because in these left-handed corners, obviously, the way weight shifting works, it's going to weigh in on your right tire. But the left-handed corners on this track are mostly dominated by elevation change. And as we know, elevation change isn't going to impact your tires as much because the natural course of gravity is going to shift that weight with no real damage done to the tires. So, is there a world where some of these drivers, in order to gain a position or 2, maybe even 3, do they take the left tires because these left tires are getting eaten up in Moss Corner and in Quebec Corner? So, just something to worry about here, as that might be a valid strategy.
Yeah, I'd imagine we're going to see somebody do that here. Because it looks like Christian Bishop is back up into 4th now, after having that horrendous run there for a little bit. Like Lyle Swearingen's in the pits. Justin Wilkinson back up to 8th position after his mistake. I believe it was at Moss there too. So a couple of these guys rebounding pretty well here so far. We'll see what happens after they make their pit stop here.
Justin Wilkinson in the pit looking to get his good years. As I'm not exactly sure what kind of fuel load they're running here. Is refueling something they have to do here? Or are you aware of their fuel load that is in these trucks?
Well, they usually it's almost 100, so we'll see. See what they have here. Yeah.
As we know, I mean, weight is weight. And, the fuel that these guys bring into their truck, if they choose to take it, is going to give them more grip on some of these corners, but it's also going to make them slower as well.
Yeah, definitely will. But I'm not quite sure how much fuel run they're going to have. I mean, it is 100% fuel load, so I'd assume they're going to have to pit at least one time. But when you pit, I guess it's kind of depends on what you think you can get away with. As Charles Woods is in now. It looks like we've had a few guys come to pit lane here. Charles Woods, Lyle Swearingen, Justin Wilkinson, Jeff Schmeier all come in 16, 17. So I'd imagine they'll get about halfway through and everybody will hit pit lane.
Yeah, we're seeing about a 2-second fall off between lap times right now for, these leaders. However, 124.65 last lap for Andrew Schulte. That is the fastest lap I've seen in the past 4 or 5 laps. So maybe these worn tires, he might be the Lewis Hamilton here, finding grip when grip is not expected.
Yeah, he definitely has shown through the few races that he has run with his league that he's been able to save his tires and make them last a lot longer than some of these other drivers. And usually he's one of the better trucks on that longer run. So maybe it's the same thing here at this road course. Is saving tires is basically saving tires.
Yeah, I mean, most sport is always going to favor the long run. The shorter the track is, the shorter the road course is, the more favorable the long stints are. That's just kind of a general thing that I've learned throughout my years. And as we see the 81 of Andrew Schulte come in lap 19, looking to get his good years. But, the long stint is going to prove favorable, I would assume. But, with 2 of the top 4 drivers already in the pit, are we going to see somebody, have the guts to take a long stint?
Well, if we do, I think we're probably looking at him here in Christian Bishop. I think he's a little frustrated with the way his first part of this race went. You can kind of tell by the damage there to that left side of that 26 Chevy, but he is out front leading. And like I said before, he is definitely one of the road course ringers because he always shows up when there's a road course and always does extremely well. So definitely one guy to watch, and especially now that he's kind of on a different pit strategy, if he's able to get a little bit of time by staying out, you never know what will happen when you come to the end of these races.
Yeah, and Christian Bishop last lap, a 125.11, which is the fastest lap of anybody else on that lap, on lap 19. So, there's a good chance that he stretches it out and goes for the long stint. And as I say that, I completely have to take back everything I just said, because he's into the pits for his good years. And, I would have maybe, if I was Christian Bishop, went 2 or 3 more laps, because he obviously had pretty decent pace for how old the tires were.
Yeah, I think he might have just wanted to see about getting that 1 lap lead and go from there, but you never know. Kyle McCartney made his pit stop and is back out into 3rd position, only 16 seconds from Butch Davis here.
Yeah, and obviously Butch Davis and Eric Bolton are going to have to pit at some point. So Kyle McCartney is almost your provisional leader as it stands. Chris Simmerd, Andrew Schulte also have not taken tires yet. They have not pitted. Same with Dennis Fuson in the P10 position. He is up 9 spots, though. And going back to Chris Simmerd, although he is, out longer than everybody else, he is up 12 positions. So, this overcut, he is running 126.46 his last lap, though. So not the greatest of pace for, being 21 laps into the stint. Almost think that an undercut would have favored him more. But, he might be able to stretch this out a little bit and be able to get some, positions from what his natural position was before the pit cycle started.
Yeah, he's going to be looking to try and do something there, as got to try and pull out anything he can, because Kyle McCartney is still driving away here.
Yeah, Kyle McCartney is a beast right now. He is running this show, and a 123.53 for him, so almost running qualifying pace, 0.4 off qualifying pace, which is absolutely insane, because he has got what I assume to be a full gas tank in that number 18 truck of his, and it's really nothing but daylight for him now.
Yeah, it definitely is. Got almost a 5-second lead over Andrew Schulte. Christian Bishop, after making his pit stop, is basically sitting back in 3rd, Bentley Glazer in 4th. So we'll see how these guys work their way through these corners after making their pit stop. You got to think they went from basically having little to no grip to having those 4 fresh Goodyears, or at least 2, like you were saying. So we'll see what kind of difference that makes, as Butch Davis is still leading this race here.
Yeah, he is going for a very, very, very long stint. Personally, I think with his pace that he has been running, as you see him almost sliding the car like a dirt car into turn 1 there, you know, I personally think with his pace, he should have pitted a little bit before, but, you know, I can't knock him. He came in with the strategy of a long stint, I presume, and he is sticking to it. So shout out to him for not folding.
Yeah, the lap time that he just put down was a 1:25.88. Christian Bishop just put down the fastest lap of the race with a 1:23.14. So the fall off is dramatic right now.
Yeah, and for Christian Bishop in that 26, he's been dinged up a little bit. Had some off tracks at Moss. Had an off track at the beginning of the race into Quebec, if I'm not mistaken. And he said, you know, he's got James over the radio saying, "Lewis, it's hammer time." And, you know, he is absolutely trying to make a case here, as unfortunately the lap traffic, the number 1 of Julian Ritchie, catches that curb, really compromises his exit. So a few tenths lost there, but he is quick on the pursuit of Andrew Schulte in P3.
Yeah, he definitely is. He's almost. It's almost like he, after that first stint there, he's made his pit stop, and now he's got that new car, and he is on a mission here to get back up front where he was running earlier. Butch Davis into pits. Kyle McCartney takes over the lead.
So that moves Christian Bishop into a P3 spot, and you know what resiliency by Christian Bishop, man. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we saw him at P8 or P9 after those string of mistakes that he had. And to climb back up to P3 in such a short amount of time, this is like a 7-lap span we're talking here. To climb all the way back into P3 after a, you know, a less than optimal pit strategy that he had, you know, with the mistakes. What a drive. What a drive from Christian Bishop so far. You can't help but to root for him.
Yeah, definitely. So as we've completed our pit stops here, I know we saw Andrew Schulte make his pit stop. I don't know why it's not registered. And so he's in second, Christian Bishop third, Bentley Glazer fourth, Jeff Schmeier back in fifth. We're going to step aside for a moment, and we will be right back momentarily. welcome back everybody to the Western States Racing League live from Canadian Tire. These guys are putting on a show. We've had a few different pit strategies kind of play out a little bit here, but Kyle McCartney is still leading this thing as you see him hop over the curb there. Andrew Schulte back in second. Christian Bishop, after some early incidents, is up to third. So those are the top three as we sit now. We got 13 laps to go, and these guys are definitely putting in work here. How do you think the race has played out so far, Mac?
You know, I think it's played out extremely well as we see Kyle McCartney go very wide there into turn two. You know, a lot of stuff has played out, like you said. We've had a lot of different strategies here. We've had some unfortunate happenings for, you know, potential leaders, potential podium placers. But the one thing that shines through everything right now is Kyle McCartney. He has led almost this entire race, if not the entire race. And he is almost in a league of his own right now. And I say almost because there's one guy slightly down the road, about 4.5 seconds down the road from him, named Christian Bishop. And this guy, while we were at the break, posted a lap of a 1:22.95. And just to put that into context for you guys, that is 2.5 tenths faster than anything we have seen for this entire race. Mind you, this guy has damage. He has also spun out. He has went wide. He has made multiple mistakes, and yet here he is still fighting, having the race of his career, one might say, as he is fighting for a potential win, because in P2 in front of him, Andrew Schulte, we are 28 laps into this race. He has still not pitted.
Yeah, he's got, and okay, so right there you said he was 4.5 seconds. Now it's down to almost 3, pretty close here from Kyle McCartney to Christian Bishop.
Yeah, his pace is, you know, absolutely blistering. And Kyle McCartney is probably suffering from the leader's curse. You know, we see it a lot in motorsport, especially in the GT3 race the other day at what I think was Fuji. I'm not for sure on the names of the drivers, but the leader of that race blew a 16-second lead to the guy behind him. And, you know, the announcers were calling it the leader's curse. You know, when you lead a race for so long and you start turning these laps at such proficiency, your mind kind of mitigates and kind of nullifies the slight errors that you are making because you're just kind of zoned out. You know, unfortunately for Kyle McCartney, this race has been boring. And I say that because he hasn't had to overtake anybody. So for him to be in the lead for 29 straight laps, and for him to not only, you know, make it through this race with blistering pace, but the only type of overtaking he's had to do are back markers and lapped cars. He is starting to compound these small mistakes that are turning into a few tenths here and a few tenths there for guys like Andrew Schulte and Christian Bishop, who, as I have been telling you, has already gained another 2 tenths and is looking to overtake P2 Andrew Schulte. So Kyle McCartney, it's extremely hard to be sharp and to be quick-witted when you're in the lead for this long.
Right in front of the leader, Dennis Poussin spun around and kept it off the track and out of the way. But now he's in front of Andrew Schulte. We'll see if Schulte and Bishop are able to get around Poussin here. Schulte does with no problem.
Unfortunately for those guys, Andrew Schulte and Christian Bishop, Dennis Poussin had to rejoin at a very inoptimal time for those two guys. So they end up losing about a second to Kyle McCartney. So, you know, as I was explaining that the gap was, you know, getting more narrow and more narrow, turns out that it widens back up.
Yep, it's back out to 4 seconds again. So we'll see if there's anybody else on track here to slow down Kyle McCartney, man.
he's gotten into this habit to where he's taking kind of a sliding line into turn 2. He's, almost taking it a little too wide, and I wonder if that's where he's losing his time, because I watch him and these other corners he's taking, the same he's been taking it all race. But turn 2, he seems to be going out wider, and although he's kind of in a neutral slide, I think he might think that he's gaining, or he's increasing his momentum, but he's actually losing it because he's taking a wide line. So I just wonder if that's where maybe his mistake is and he just hasn't realized it yet.
Well, it's exactly like you were saying. I mean, you sit here, you drive, 30 laps with not any real competition, probably for at least the last, say, 20. I mean, you get comfortable, you get, basically, you kind of like zone out like you were talking about. So, I mean, if it's not, making any, he's not seeing any change really in the relative, because the other two guys got stuck back there. So he looks up this lap and it's about the same gap as it was a couple laps ago. He's not going to worry about it too much. And then all of a sudden these guys running second and third are going to be right on his back bumper shortly.
Yeah. And, maybe so, maybe not. He might be able to straighten up and be able to get that pace back. But, as it stands, through Quebec corner, he actually loses 0.2 to Andrew Schulte, I noticed on the gap in the timing. So, maybe he's just losing pace. You never really know. I think it's more of a battle against himself than it is against anybody else right now for Kyle McCartney.
Yeah, it might be. And maybe he's just kind of trying to manage that gap, keep it about 3 seconds or so, maybe save a little of his tires. So maybe he's thinking he'll be able to just put down that loud pedal a little bit better once they get to the 3-4 laps to go.
And Andrew Schulte, unless my live timing is playing tricks on me, he has still not pitted.
I think it is, because I believe he did pit, because I think we were on him and talking about if he was going to make a long run, and I think he did go to pit lane, but I think he'd almost have to, because everybody else is pitted. Even Wayne Hutchinson's making his second pit stop after stopping relatively early in the race.
Yeah, so that's unfortunate software malfunction for us. But I was going to say, if he hasn't pitted, which, I think you're right. I'm pretty sure he has pitted, because that does sound very familiar. But if he didn't, his pace is absolutely crazy for 32-lap-old tires. So I think we have to chalk that one up for software malfunction and, assume he has pitted.
Oh, as Christian Bishop goes wide there. Able to keep it under control this time, though. But happened a few laps into the race where he got those tires just into the outside of a corner in that dirt and kind of sucked him in. This time here, he didn't allow that to happen, but he lost a ton of time to Andrew Schulte.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Christian Bishop, I think realistically you have to, kind of stop your dreams at P2. I do believe that he can overtake Andrew Schulte. However, I do not think there's enough time in the race for him to catch Kyle McCartney. But, what a performance we've seen from Christian Bishop so far.
Yeah, definitely looking back through the field. We've got Andrew Schulte, who is up 6 positions. We've got William Fletcher up 5. Then clear back here, Paul Kermerai is up 6 as well. So, I mean, these guys have definitely, even though they're still racing back towards the back, they've improved their position quite a little bit. Even Jeff Hollinsworth here, I know road courses aren't his favorite, but he's still up 6 positions, currently running in 14th right now.
Yeah, and, Jeff Hollingsworth put on one heck of a show at New Hampshire, through adversity. I think he was caught up in 4 cautions, I believe. Still managed to come away with a good result. And, Lyle Swearingen, unfortunately, you know, we saw it. I think it was lap 7 or lap 8. He got involved in some chaos around Moss Corner. He is down 8 positions from his initial start. Currently P15, started P7. And, you know, unfortunately for him, there's really only one person he can overtake, and that is who we were just talking about, Jeff Hollingsworth, in front of him.
Yeah, this is definitely one of one of the races that Jeff's probably gonna throw into that drop week, that the couple drop weeks that they have here. So, and Bentley Glazer is got to be almost grinning ear to ear, sitting in P4 with some of these other guys having a little bit of a bad day here.
Yeah, oh, a big off for Bentley Glazer. It's the commentator's curse, man. It's the commentator's curse. But unfortunately for him, you know, a lot of road course racers, they get into a habit of following the car in front of them. And the car in front of Bentley Glazer, I'm not sure who it was, but he went a little wide coming into Clayton's corner. And, you know, unfortunately for him, I think he just kind of mindlessly followed him, you know, assuming that he was going to take the right line. And unfortunately, it spelled doom for him. But still in that P4 position. Unfortunately, a 17-second gap now to Christian Bishop. But if you're Bentley Glazer, everything he went through in the beginning of the race, you can't be upset with a P4 finish, assuming he keeps the position.
Yeah, he's got a couple seconds there back to Jeff Schmeier. Jeff Schmeier, lap 1, had his incident there and had to kind of slow down and let everybody go around. So he wound up at the tail end of the field on lap 1, and he has battled back up to where he qualified in P5. So has to be happy with the day he's had right now.
Yeah, and, you know, we're coming up on 5 to go next time by for Kyle McCartney, as that gap, it is dwindling ever so slightly. 2.6 seconds back the road is Andrew Schulte. Last time we checked in on it about 3 or 4 laps ago, it was 3.4. So, you know, we might be... and as Kyle McCartney actually runs onto the grass and is a little squirmy going down the Andretti straightaway. So the gap, it's here. They are here. Andrew Schulte is going to make it about a 1-second gap by the end of the Andretti straightaway. As Mike, I think we're going to have a battle for the lead here to close the race.
I think you are probably right. Andrew Schulte, we talked about him before he made his pit stop, that he was he seemed to have that truck that was just built for that long run, and he seems to be doing it. Let's see what this last lap was. Last lap he was almost a second faster, because Kyle McCartney went a 125.9 and Andrew Schulte a 124.59. So these guys are definitely going to be catching each other momentarily. Even Christian Bishop's not too far back. All the leaders are about 1 second between each of them. So we'll see how this finishes here.
And if Andrew Schulte can get a good exit out of Moss coming up, he is going to have a good run on Kyle McCartney and also the toe of Kyle McCartney. So by the S's this lap, or maybe by Clayton's corner next lap, we could be seeing bumper to bumper action.
And we'll see if Glazer or McCartney can straighten out after that little mistake. We were talking about it earlier. One mistake leads to another, and these guys have got to just put that out of their head and drive, because they are, right now, the top 3 are pretty much just battling to see which one's going to be in which position on this podium here.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, fortunately for Kyle McCartney, those mistakes, it kind of woke him up a little bit. You know, I'm seeing his lines a lot more precise, and his, you know, entries a little bit slower, and his exits a little bit faster. So, you know, as he, yeah, look at that, takes the racing line into Clayton's corner, not doing any of that wide stuff that he was doing earlier in the race. So I do believe he kind of zoned out when he was in the lead, and those mistakes and seeing that relative creep up into the ones instead of in the threes, I think it kind of woke him up a little bit, and I think he is starting to put down some really blistering pace now.
Well, like I said, I think it was either that or he just was trying to save all the tire he could, because now he's even, what, that lap was a 124.75. Andrew Schulter was a 125.02. So quarter of a second gap he gained back that lap, and it looks like he's going even faster this time. So we'll see if he's able to pull a little bit wider margin here back to Andrew Schulter.
And 3 to go as soon as Kyle McCartney crosses the start-finish line here in a couple of moments. And yeah, it seems like the gap has widened even more. So, you know, Kyle McCartney back on his awareness, and, you know, really putting these good laps down as that one. Andrew Schulter actually runs 4 100ths faster than him, but Andrew Schulter is going to need a lot more than 4 100ths if he's going to take this lead. 3 laps to go.
It looks like he's been managing about a 1.4, 1.5 second gap back to Andrew Schulter. So Andrew Schulter, if he has anything left in that 81 Toyota, he has got to get it going and get it going now.
Yeah, as we see Kyle McCartney take a lot of curb coming out onto that straightaway before Moss. But, you know, it didn't really hurt him too much. He lost a couple of tenths. The gap now to Andrew Schulter, 1.3, as, you know, slowly but steady, Andrew Schulter got a better exit out of Moss, so he is catching a little bit, gained about 5 hundredths on the Mario Andretti straightaway. But coming into the S's, Kyle McCartney has been absolutely lethal. He has been taking the ideal line every single lap. However, I say that Andrew Schulter actually gained, but coming out of White's corner gives it right back to him. Gap goes back to 1.3 seconds. So it's just a tug of war right now with 2 to go. But here's the crazy thing. Kyle McCartney is creeping up on lap traffic. That could prove to be extremely detrimental to his winning run.
Yeah, that is not something Kyle McCartney wants to see. He wants them to get going just a little bit faster so he can get these last 2 laps in, which it looks like he probably will complete these 2 laps before he gets to the back of them. But if not, Andrew Schulter will be getting right on his rear bumper.
A good Moss corner for Kyle McCartney there. No wheel spin on the exit. He is absolutely textbook right now.
Down that straightaway, looks like I said, looks like that gap is still being pretty much maintained between the lap cars and Andrew Schulter. So Andrew Schulter did get it down to almost 1 second. So he is closing a little bit, but I think it might just be a little bit too late unless Kyle McCartney makes a mistake as we get to the front straightaway here. White flag in the air. Final lap, Kyle McCartney, Andrew Schulter. See if they can battle it out here to see who wins.
Yeah, and fortunately for Kyle McCartney, I don't believe he is going to catch the lap traffic by the time he crosses the start-finish line one more time. Takes the ideal line down into Clayton's. That was where I thought maybe Andrew Schulter might have gotten, you know, the best of him, but through Quebec corner, everything is looking great for Kyle McCartney. As Andrew Schulter, I think you're right, is just a little too far back.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Andrew Schulter got it down to 3/4 of a second, but then gave it right back pretty quickly. And through Moss, Kyle McCartney is just, like you said, almost lethal, as he's got that gap almost back out to 1.5 seconds now.
Yeah, Moss corner. We said it at the top of the broadcast. We said it was going to breed chaos and catastrophe. But for Kyle McCartney, it bred nothing but greatness, as he only messed up that corner maybe once or twice. As you know, coming through the S's into White's corner, it's going to be Kyle McCartney who takes the checkered flag here at Motorsport.
Kyle McCartney put on a clinic, leading almost every single lap here except for the ones he was in the pits. Andrew Schulte closed it up to be second. Christian Bishop bounced back to P3. Bentley Glazer going to come across the line in fourth. Eric Bolton coming through here in fifth. Jeff Schmeier sixth. William Fletcher seventh. Butch Davis, Justin Wilkinson's going to bring home ninth, and Ryan Steele holds on for 10th.
Yeah, unfortunate day for Justin Wilkinson, as he was in that top 3 for a considerable amount of time, and we saw him make a mistake, surrender the position rather, to, I forgot who it was now, but all he did was just go backwards and backwards and backwards. So unfortunate for the number 6 of Justin Wilkinson.
Get Christian Bishop in here. Christian, Mike up in the booth. How is it going, man?
It's all right. I was hoping for that dub, but just made one too many mistakes.
Yeah, you were definitely the fastest truck out on track. You had that little mistake early in the race, battled back the P3. How was the track other than the couple little mistakes? You were lightning quick out there.
It felt pretty good. The only issue that I had was coming out of the hairpin. I just couldn't find what some people were getting as far as grip out of that corner. So if you can't do that, you just can't pass anybody. That's really the only passing zone, unless you can get creative or force it earlier. So it made it kind of difficult and a little bit of a struggle for most of it. But generally, it's pretty good. A lot of people on the track. Not a lot of incidents I saw, which is always good. Yeah, pretty clean race from everybody involved, it looked like.
Definitely was. Back once again on the podium in a road course, so you can keep up your road course ringer here for the WSRL. But anybody you want to thank before we let you go for this P3 finish?
Yeah, let me give a shout out to my team, Spaceship Racing. A bunch of great guys. They helped me out a lot. And thanks, guys, for putting on a good broadcast.
Thanks, Christian.
Thanks.
Andrew Schulte up here. Mac, if you want to talk to him.
Andrew Schulte, driver of the 81, up 6 spots from where you began the day. You were P8. You finished the race P2 on that second notch of the podium. Walk me through it, man. What were you thinking towards those final laps of the race?
I was just hoping and praying he was a little more wore out than I was, and that he was going to make a mistake. And I just, little by little, I could see, like, through that hairpin, every now and then he'd blitz the tires getting into the throttle and it'd knock off a couple tenths. But at the same time, Christian was fast behind me, and so I'm trying to stay focused out front, but also paying attention to my mirror too much. And I was tempted to let him by there when he was on me, because I knew he was faster, and I figured, well, if he can get by me, run down Kyle, and then maybe I'll have a chance at that. Thankfully, I didn't choose to do that, but it was a battle of who could make the least amount of mistakes and obviously still be fast doing it. And I got to give it to Kyle. I mean, he ran a great race, and even with making a couple mistakes to help close in that gap, I mean, he still stayed on top of it and was able to pull out a win. Hell, I'm just happy I'm second. the first couple practice laps, I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna have for this thing, and I've done enough road races where it's like, all right, just don't make any mistakes, or if you do, minimal. And I had a couple here and there, but as long as you keep the truck on the track, usually you're gonna have a way better time than if you're a couple tenths quicker and have more off tracks or more mistakes. So just tried to stay real focused there.
Yeah, well, you did just that. Slow and steady wins the race. You weren't necessarily blistering through any corner, but you did have just enough pace to where, as long as you kept all 4 of those tires on the track, you were going to make up space. So, extremely, almost like an endurance mindset coming out of you. So it was really pleasing to see. It was really great to watch. And, the floor is yours, man. Who do you want to shout out for this race?
Well, speaking of endurance, I guess I want to shout out my Bandit Motorsports teammates. We do the Daytona 24 every year, and talk about endurance. That takes a lot to get through one of those races, and especially in the dead of the night, it sure takes a lot of focus. So I want to shout out them for inadvertently helping me train for these road races. Shout out to Patented Paints. Got a Ty Majeski look-alike paint scheme on the truck today. I hope you guys enjoyed the race. I'm all wore out, so I hope you guys had a good time watching, and we'll see you guys next week.
Yes, sir. We did that. Andrew Schulte, driver of the 81, coming home P2.
Now Kyle McCartney joins us up in the booth here.
What's up, Mike?
Oh, not much, man. So you started on the pole, made your way to quite the lead there. Looked like you kind of got a little comfortable, which might have led to a couple little mistakes and let Andrew Schulte kind of back in the race. Walk us through what you were thinking when you were out there leading.
Oh man, with about 5 to go coming out of that hairpin, I got some wicked wheel spin and it sent me into the grass. But prior to that, I was kind of almost matching him time for time. So I knew if I could just throw in about 3 or 4 more good laps, wouldn't have an issue. But I know he had a little bit fresher tires, but I think he was pushing hard. And by the end, I think he pretty much burned them off. So I was doing everything I could just to kind of hang on to him and not, roast those rear tires.
Yeah, definitely. It looked like you were. I kind of thought you were just trying to save those tires for as long as you could until someone started to come to you, or there was about 5 or 6 laps, and that's about the same time you made that little mistake, and then it's like it woke up your truck, and you were back on that racing line and pulling away a little bit again.
Yeah, kind of scared me, so I just pushed it as hard as I could there those last several laps. Kind of with a couple laps to go, I knew if I had about a 1.5 second lead, I'd be okay. But yeah, he was still throwing it in there, and I saw those lappers up in front of us too. That was starting to get a little nerve-wracking too. But I think the guys that were right in front of me had fresher tires, so we weren't really catching them, which was nice.
Yeah, that's what we were noticing on the broadcast, trying to see if you were going to be able to catch them, and if you caught them, that would have definitely kind of threw a wrench into the plans there. But you were able to stay just far enough away from them and in front of Andrew there. So congrats on your win. Anybody you want to thank as we get ready to wrap this up and head to, I believe, Eldora next week?
Yeah, no, I got to give a shout out to Greg DeVries. He showed up again and finally had a win for him. So, and he wanted me to pull a little Ric Flair and go, woo! And I got to give a shout out to my mom. I know she's watching, and then to my wife, and yeah, to you guys in the booth. I appreciate you guys, broadcasting these every single week. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. So another one in the books here. Mac, we were in for quite a treat there. These road course races do go a little bit quicker, but there was action pretty much all over the track. And even when you came down to the end with only, 1.5 second gap between first and second. So it was still a heck of a race.
Yeah, absolutely magnificent show from these guys in WSRL. And, ideally, you'll see us back next week for, what'd you say, Eldora?
Yeah, Eldora.
That's going to be cool. That's going to be cool to see. These drivers, typically oval dominant, I would assume, because, they're driving a truck league, go from a weak spot in a lot of drivers' repertoire when it comes to a road, and then go to dirt, which is maybe not as much of a weakness because a lot of oval drivers actually stem from dirt. So, we'll get to see how these trucks navigate around Eldora. It should be extremely fun to watch.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing what these guys do every time they go up to the track here. Go ahead and get this wrapped up. We'll go through the results real quick. Kyle McCartney did bring home the W. Andrew Schulte, Christian Bishop, Bentley Glazer, Eric Bolton, Jeff Schmeier, William Fletcher, Butch Davis, Justin Wilkinson, and Ryan Seal round out that top 10. Then we go back to Chris Samard, Jeff Hollinsworth, Brian Barnes, Lyle Swearingen, and Chad Simpson inside that top 15.
Yeah, and, rounding out the back half of the grid, we had Michael Milfelt, P16, Wayne Hutchinson, P17, Dennis Fisson, P18. Paul Krumray up 6 spots from P25 to P19. Julian Ricci, P20. Dan Brazington, P21. P22 goes to Dustin Burns. Chris Walker, Charles Woods, and unfortunately, Bob Beltrami Salami comes up in the last spot. And Fred Williams, Carl Burke, Oliver Cordell did not choose to take this race.
Yeah, definitely a little bit of a announcer curse there for Bob Beltrami, and same thing for Bentley Glazer. Both of us were talking about how good they were doing, and then they weren't doing quite as well. But wrap up this race here from Motorsport. Head to Eldora next week. So from everybody at the Western States Racing League and all of us here at Sim Racing Media, I will see you guys next week from Eldora. Good night.